I have a passion for this on a couple of different levels. I mean, since I was a little kid, I loved being behind a microphone. And it's not because my parents didn't give me enough attention, because I had great parents. I can't tell you why, but I just did. I liked it. And the funny thing is that if you'd known me as a kid, you would have picked me maybe the last person to do what I do for a living, because I was an extremely, almost a painfully shy child. I never sought the spotlight. I was not the class clown. I was very quiet. As a school teacher, you would have loved me, because I was quiet. I was well behaved. I always turned my work in on time. I didn't create waves. I just did my thing. But I did it very quietly, and like I said, I don't know that a wallflower would be right, but I was very, I was quiet, and it really is my personality today. I really am a quiet, fairly shy. I'm social, but at the same time, I don't seek out that, that kind of thing. But there was something about a microphone, and I know it was radio. I was introduced to radio when I was a kid, and as a kid, when I was a kid, it was the big top 40 AM radio stations like WCFL, WLS, and I loved it more than television. And I would spend hours and hours listening. I was fascinated with. I loved the music and could tell you any song. Every week I could tell you the chart position and the song and the artist. I just knew. Loved Casey Kasem was my hero. Yeah. And I thought, if I could do something like that when I grow up, I thought that would just be the coolest thing in the world. And maybe actually talking behind a microphone was less intimidating for me than being looking into the eyeballs of somebody. Maybe that was it. I don't know, but I knew by the time I was about 12 years old, that's what I wanted to do with my life. And so I locked onto that, and I never let that go. Except the other thing was music. And I know we have, you talked about your passion for music. I was the same way. And I loved music, and I had two goals in life. I either wanted to be a rock star or I wanted to be a radio disc jockey. And the rock star thing never worked out for me. So I, ended up getting in radio. But I played, guitar all through college, traveled with bands, and coming out of college, actually there was a band I was with, and it was a Christian band, and we were offered a recording contract with a label out of Nashville, a little label at the time called Brentwood Music, which evolved into Essential Records. And I don't even know what they are today, because the music industry is such a crazy, crazy, crazy place. And they had a tour booked for a year. They were going coast to coast for the next year, had the entire thing all booked out. And I just felt that's not, at that point, I just knew I needed, actually I was married at that time too, which kind of played into it, but felt like I needed to pursue the radio thing. That's what I wanted to do, so I let music go. Funny thing was, I ended up playing music more than those guys. All disbanded after a year. They were gone, and I was still playing. I had to get my own thing, and we would travel around. I was in Ohio. We traveled all over the state, and sometimes in some of the the adjacent states, and we'd do stuff all the time. So I really got to kind of fulfill that need to that creative outlet as well. But I got into radio, so I didn't come from this without having any experience behind a microphone. But and I was a radio station, I was a morning guy, I was a program director, I was a production director. I've written and recorded, produced thousands of commercials, over the past couple of decades. I was a radio station manager for a while, worked for a nonprofit station and raised a lot of money. And I found out that the things that I learned as a program director, I became really good at building ratings, radio station ratings. Multiplying the audience, several times over, relatively quickly, that I found that to be pretty easy. Working with virtually no budget. These are stations that didn't allow much of any money to marketing. And then as a manager and growing the revenue of the station, those were the skills and the information, the tools that I ended up using in my voiceover business. And what I learned was that business is business is business. Marketing is marketing is marketing. It doesn't matter if you're selling widgets or if you're doing voiceover work. Now you have to adapt it to the marketplace. But the principles, if you're a good salesman, those same skills that within the beverage industry, transfer over into the voiceover industry as well. Well, in early 2005, I really, I'd been at Olivet Nazarene University. I had been brought here from Columbus, Ohio, offered a position to teach and to manage their nonprofit radio station, which I did for 14 great years. Loved it. And I loved the teaching, And during that time, got my MBA, and then began teaching, working adults in the evenings in an MBA program, marketing and organization. Or oh gosh, they had me teach, I think, almost every class that wasn't related to finance and economics, because you tend to be either the creative, like the marketing, communication, or you tend to be the finance, economics, accounting. That was not my side. That's my wife and my daughter. But I was more the communication and the marketing guy, so I taught all of those classes, and I really felt that I wanted to pursue something else, and started sending out my resume, and in 2005 ended up actually a couple of things. Worked for a business consulting firm in Chicago, and where I met with small to mid-size business owners and managers and presidents, and helping them to identify the weak areas of their business. And so saw that there are systems behind a lot of this, and if you know what to measure and monitor, you could quickly diagnose and figure out what you need to improve to grow your business. And then from there, went to work for a instructional design firm, where we went into Fortune 500 companies like Kellogg and Caterpillar and Colgate and a bunch of others, and we would help them create these high-performance learning environments to train their employees. And there was a science behind training and learning. And became fascinated with that. Actually started working on a PhD at that point in education, with an emphasis on training and performance improvement, because I thought it would be a good return on my investment in my job. Well, ended up being downsized. So I dropped out of that program and didn't finish up my work there. And that's when I got into voiceovers, because my income was slashed dramatically. I was cut essentially to part-time, and I had to figure out something fast. And so I took a course, which is how you found me, through the testimonial. Yes. And it was like one of the telephone type course, and what I found, and a lot of it was like cartoon voices and stuff that I really wasn't interested in, but I did learn some things. And what I found out was that I wasn't that far off the mark. I mean, it gave me a lot of confidence. I thought, oh yeah, a lot of this I already knew. But if you come from a radio background, you realize there are some things actually that work against you, and you tend to develop these patterns that people don't like in the voiceover business, and you have to kind of relearn and all of that kind of thing. So I set out on a journey, and that journey led me all throughout the internet, much as you guys have done. You Google everything possible, and you want to find out what's out there. And I started sifting through and pulling. I tried to got a better sense of the market and what's going on. What I discovered was, like I said, that good marketing is marketing is marketing, and that the stuff that I knew and had used to be successful in other areas applied the template was the same. You just lay it over this, and if you do that, things will happen. And I feel like I'm good at what I do, but I'm a pretty average sounding guy. I'm not the kind of guy somebody listening to and say, hey, you should be the voice of ABC or CB, But I found out there was a market for it. And I figured out I could get work, and I did. And within a year, I was generating really good income as a voiceover talent. And then I found out that if I marketed well to my current clients as well as my prospective clients, that I could continue to grow that business and have every year, even when things have gone bad in the economy, I've averaged 12 to 13% growth every year since that first year in my business, and see no signs of slowing. That doesn't mean that I have not lost clients along the way. And it's funny, I'm getting ready to put together a video podcast, and you'll see this soon if you follow my YouTube channel. But I've lost a lot of money along the way, thousands and thousands of dollars per month of regular income through customers that have gone out of business, or that have to cut back their budgets in certain areas. And voiceover, like there was a corporate podcast I did, that I could count on every week. They decided to cut that out of their budget. There was a big newspaper that I recorded their political commentary for an audio podcast every day. I made about $2,500 a month just from that client. That because of budget problems, they needed to cut the budget in half for what I was doing. And it was an evening job on top of what I was already doing. And I just said, no, this is not worth it for me. So I let go of that, and a number of other things. But I say all that to say that my business has continued to grow in spite of all the money so sometimes it's 3 steps forward, 1 step back, but that's business. That's just the way it is. So
beautiful thing about a big portfolio of clients too. You lose one, it's a fraction of a percent, as opposed to it's all of my business.
That's exactly right. And so that's why I really advocate that kind of approach to your business. One of the things, and a part of this is a real mindset, you know, how you think about the business and how you approach the business. And along the line of what you were just saying, Ralph, a lot of people, most people that I've found, approach the voiceover business as the lottery. And what I mean by that is they shoot for what they perceive to be what is available in the voiceover business. It's the high profile stuff. Mm-hmm. And going for that, going to be, you know, trying to be a character voice in a major, you know, a Family Guy, trying to be the next voice of ABC or NBC, trying to be the next movie trailer voice, is like playing the lottery. Now, there's nothing wrong with going for it, and if that's your dream and that's your goal, then you should train for it and you should go for it. But if that's your business plan, that's a terrible business plan. Because in all reality, the odds of getting that are so slim. Now, again, I'm a person who always will encourage you, you know, whatever it is you want to go for, you should go for it. But there's so many other ways to make money in the voiceover business that if you want to do it as a business, you need to look at it as a business, approach it as a business, make sure you're generating good cash flow, and continue to audition for all the, you know, the choice jobs. My portfolio of work looks like occasionally I get the really big job. You know, I recently did I did a national. Several national spots for a healthcare provider. It used to be Vein Clinics of America. They changed their name. I can't remember of it, but they had to every year they bring me in to do these updated spots. I had to update it with the new names, and it was done in a studio up in the Wrigley building because my ISDN wasn't working, which is a whole other conversation. So, you know, like, and I'm non-union, which means I get no residuals, you know, and typically also the rate's not as good as if you're union, but there's a lot more work available. So that's why I do that. But during that 1 hour of work, I paid like $2,000 for that 1 hour. That doesn't happen every day. It doesn't even happen every week or every month. But occasionally, I get the really nice job. But it's kind of like a pyramid, you know. It's at the top, you know, they're few and far between. But the further down you go, there's a lot of regional work, and there's a lot of narration work or audiobook work, you know, that pays decently well. And there's also, you know, especially when you're building your business, there's a whole lot of work out there, Fiverr and such, that doesn't pay great, but there's a lot of it. And it's a great way to begin to at least to build your income. And my business model works like this. I fill up my schedule. I don't care necessarily at the very beginning, I didn't care how much it paid. I just want to be busy. I want to make sure I've got work coming in. But as my schedule maxes out, what I've done over the years is I drop, as a matter of fact, this week I just dropped a few more clients. I say, you know, I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you over these years. I have to focus my efforts in the areas of my business that are most profitable. And so, you know, and so I just slowly drop that end off as I get higher paying clients in, which has allowed me to continue to grow my business over time. I think it's a more reasonable approach. It's not playing the lottery. It's not a crapshoot. Yes. You know, it's not like you have one arrow in your quiver and you've got to hit the bullseye or you lose the game. It's not that kind of approach at all.
Too much pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. Yeah. And it's not get rich quick by any means, and it's a lot of work, but it's fun. Audiobooks, I believe, are the best way to get into the voiceover business because there's a lot of work available and it's not as demanding as commercial work. And in all honesty, it doesn't, typically the jobs that you'll get will not pay as well as commercial work. But it can become a very consistent stream of income for you.